Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for our first daily dose of Commander Masters spoilers. So Commander Masters, our new Masters set, gonna be coming out the beginning of August, and we kicked off official spoiler season today, and we have a ton of reprints to talk about, including some pretty sweet and expensive cards, some really cool new art, some rarity downshifts. But before we get into the cards, a quick note about how we're going to do spoiler season this time. So normally, when a new set's being spoiled, our focus is on what can we do with these cool new cards. We've never seen this card before. It's something brand new. Can it work? Is it good? Where can we play it? What formats does it fit in? For reprint sets like Commander Masters, it's a little different because all the cards in the set already exist. We know these cards. We've played with them. I guess that isn't exactly true. The Commander precons that they're announcing next week that come along with the set are going to have new cards. But the main set is all reprints, so there's really not much point to treating it like a normal spoiler season. Like, you've probably seen Krenko before, or the Ur-Dragon before. I don't think it's really beneficial for me to be like, the Ur-Dragon, that seems like a pretty good dragon commander. We know it's a good dragon commander. We've lost to it. We've won with it. It's been around for a while. So our focus during this spoiler season is going to be a little bit different. Our focus is going to be primarily on prices. For our videos, we're going to tier rank the cards that are spoiled each day, essentially based on how much they're worth, because I think the most important news during this spoiler season is essentially what expensive cards have been reprinted. So if it's a card you've been looking for, maybe you can snag a copy on the cheap. If you got copies, maybe you want to trade them or whatever. So that's going to be our main focus, is just ranking cards based on how valuable they are, how good of a reprint it is. But we're also going to keep an eye on some other stuff, like do we have any first-time foil cards? One thing we usually get in these sets are cards that have never been printed in foil before, and some people really love foils, so that's relevant to them. We'll keep an eye out for any rarity downshifts for commanders, new art. There's going to be tons of new art in the set. We'll keep an eye out for that as well. So that's going to be the main plan for this spoiler season. Tier ranking the cards from Commander Masters based on their value. And the tier list is actually super simple. We're going to go from S tier, which is cards that are $50 to $100, all the way down to F tier, which is bulk cards and everything in between. And basically just slot all the reprints into one of those tiers and talk a little bit about why the cards are valuable or not valuable, if they're good reprints or not, where they fit in the Commander format. So anyway, I'm going to stop rambling. Let's jump into our first Commander Masters tier list. Before we do, two quick reminders. Number one, if you need any of these cards, you can snag them from our awesome sponsor, Card Kingdom, over at cardkingdom.com/MTGGoldfish. And to keep up on all the latest spoilers throughout the day, you should head on over to MTGpreviews.com. Anyway, let's tier rank some Commander Masters. So first off today, we have the S tier, which are $50 to $100 cards. Some of the most expensive cards in the entire set. If you crack a booster pack of Commander Masters, these are the cards you're going to hope to see staring back at you. Technically, we didn't get any new S tier cards today. These are actually all cards Wizards spoiled early, like a month ago when they were showing off just a handful of cards. But I wanted to bring these cards up for two reasons. One is just to remind everyone they exist. Like, these are some of the most expensive and most playable cards in the set. Secondly, you see the Jewel Lotus down in the bottom row. That's showing off one of the new card styles we're getting in Commander Masters, which is the frame break style, with the art going out over the text box in the frame of the card. Actually, it looks really cool. I expect some of those, especially like the rare foil ones that only come in collector boosters or whatever, probably end up being pretty expensive. As far as these cards themselves, Ur-Dragon, if you play Commander at all, you know this card. It is one of the most popular commanders, the best dragon commander. It's $50-ish. Jewel Lotus arguably shouldn't exist. It might be too good, but it's very expensive. If you want to get your commander on the battlefield quickly, it gets it done. The last two cards, Capture of Xing Hao and Personal Tutor, these are weird ones. They're technically super expensive. Capture is over $100, Personal Tutor is around $50. The thing is, these are cards that are really expensive, not because they're heavily played or in demand. They're expensive because they were only ever printed in Portal sets, and Portal sets have some of the lowest print runs in the history of Magic. So even though these cards are really expensive now, if you want them, just give it a couple of months, let people open some packs, and these cards should end up $5, $10, $15. We actually saw an example of this last year in Double Masters 2022, when Wizards reprinted Warrior Soul, the red extra turn spell that was only ever printed in Portal 3 Kingdoms. Before it was reprinted, it was almost a $500 card just because it was so rare. And now that it got reprinted, it's currently around $5. So just the hugest crash imaginable. I don't know if Capture of Xingqiao will crash that much because it actually is like a little bit playable, more playable than Warrior's Oath, but I do expect the prices on these cards are going to go way down just because their current price is mostly based on their scarcity rather than their playability. Moving on to the A tier, cards that are $25 to $50. First up, we get a cycle that players have been asking for a while, the Medallion cycle, the weird, not quite Mana Rock, but technically Mana Rock cycle, originally from Tempest, reduces the cost of spells of a specific color. So, fairly popular in mono-colored commander decks, these cards all are worth between $30 and $40 in general. The one exception is Emerald Medallion, which technically shouldn't even be in the A tier. It's only like 15, 20 bucks. The green one is like the least important because if you're playing a green commander deck, you get all the land ramps, so you don't really need a medallion, you don't need mana rocks. But these are cards that are pretty popular. They are very expensive. They're in the rare slot, so gonna be good opens. There's also some other upside here, which is this is the first time the Medallion cycle has ever been printed in foil. So if you're someone looking to foil out your commander decks, you're actually gonna get a chance to snag foil copies of these for a first time. So really good reprinted cycle, gonna be pretty important, I think, to players and good value in the rare slot. Also in the A slot, we got Spellseeker in land tax. Spellseeker, I honestly forgot it was an expensive card. I thought it was kind of like a $5 card, but apparently it's around $25 now. You don't see it too much in casual Commander, but it does show up in CDH games. Land tax, exactly the kind of card I want reprinted in Commander Masters. It's expensive, 30, 40 bucks. You can play it in any deck. It's a good casual card. You can play it competitively if you want to. Just being able to generate card advantage by finding lands in your mono white deck, really good. So very solid reprints, especially land tax, but Spellseeker as well. Moving on to the B tier, this is $10 to $25 cards. We get a few interesting options. Maelstrom Wanderer, Kozilek the Great Distortion, both showing off the profile card style. I'm very curious what people think of the profile card style. I've heard some people really don't like it. Personally, I think it looks really good. I love the plain background color. You really get to see the face of the character showing off in the artwork, but pretty solid reprints. Regal Behemoth, Wayward Swordtooth, these were other cards that I thought they were like bulk rares. I actually hadn't realized they had climbed up to $10 or $15. Both dinosaurs, which I think is notable. One of the things Wizards has been doing more of lately, which is really cool and I think pretty relevant to us, is they're trying to tie their supplemental sets into their main sets more. So we know we're going back to Ixalan in a few months. Right now you might be thinking, why do I want random dinosaurs that make me the Monarch or ramp me? But we're probably going to get a bunch of sweet new dinosaur legends that people are going to want to build decks around, and having these pre-prints, like pre-reprints, are going to help make sure that when players go to build around whatever sweet new dinosaur legend is printed in Ixalan, the prices of these cards are not going to spike because there's going to be this extra supply from Commander Masters. It should kind of head off that potential problem. So these are cards that you're never going to be disappointed to open, especially the rares. Kozilek, a little disappointing. It's only like 13 bucks or something, and it's in the Mythic slot, so that's not super ideal, but any of these rares are going to be perfectly fine. Moving on to the C tier, we get a couple of green cards. C tier is $5 to $10 cards. Azusa Lost But Seeking, Omnath Locus of Mana. I think the big takeaway here is the Azusa profile is maybe my favorite art from the set so far. It just looks so incredibly clean. I absolutely love how that looks. It really captures Azusa, not just the character, but the greenness with all the land ramp. So I really love these cards. These cards both see some play in Commander, maybe not as much as they used to. Azusa also has some relevance for Modern, shows up as like a one-of sometimes in Amulet Titan style decks, although Dryad of the Ilsen Grove has mostly replaced it in those builds. So these are cards that you're not going to be thrilled to open. If you're paying $12, $16 plus for a booster pack, you really want your rares to be more in the $10 range, but still, these are not horrible opens. Moving on to the D tier, these are the cards that you're going to be a little sad if you open in your pack. Krenko Mob Boss, probably the best Goblin Commander, certainly an iconic Goblin Commander, but not an especially valuable card. It's been reprinted a bunch of times. Evacuation, basically just like a bad Cyclonic Rift, although it does see some fringe playing decks trying to like loop it with Archaeomancer and do miserable things where they just bounce all the creatures every turn. So these cards, not super valuable, but I don't know. I guess they're for limited, you would say. Finally, we have the, oh my god, why did I spend my hard-earned money on a booster pack pack of Commander Masters tier, the F tier, the literal bog tier, Chainer Dementia Master, and also Carador Ghost Chieftain. So these were both somewhat popular commanders like a decade ago, kind of, but they've mostly been power crept out of the format. I don't know the last time I've actually seen anyone play either of these commanders. They've also been reprinted a bunch. Chainer was just reprinted in Dominaria Remastered. It's like 50 cents. Carador is under $1. So these are the cards that if you're going to crack an expensive booster pack, you are really praying hard to the magic gods that you do not open, because you're going to get absolutely wrecked value-wise. As far as lower rarity stuff, we get a bunch of iconic stuff that show up in most commander sets. Fellware Stone, Soul Ring, Command Tower, Path to Ancestry, Arcane Signet. These are cards that none of them are very expensive. Some of them, like Soul Ring, maybe a couple of bucks, but they are kind of the nuts and bolts of commander decks. Discounting Fellware Stone, which I used to play Fellware Stone a lot more than I do. It still shows up on rare occasions, but discounting that, these are all true commander staples. Some of the literal most played cards in the entire format that you can play in any commander deck and get value out of. So even if they aren't worth that much money, opening them in a pack is still pretty sweet, because at least you're going to get use out of them. The Arcane Signet has Drew Tucker art. One of my favorite things that Wizards has done recently is bring back old Magic artists from like 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. They haven't made much art recently and have them do some of these special versions. Drew Tucker is one of my all-time favorite Magic artists, so I'm pretty hyped to just see more Drew Tucker art. I haven't seen any new Drew Tucker art in a while. So the Arcane Signet, that's one I'm definitely going to try to snag, just using my decks because I love Drew Tucker's art. Finally, a couple of random low rarity cards. Prismatic Piper, just for limited. One of the weird quirks of this set is in limited, you can partner any monocolor or colorless commander with another monocolor or colorless commander. So essentially all monocolor commanders have partner in this set, just for limited, not for commander in general. But Prismatic Piper, it's not a good card, but it gives you a commander of any color for limited. Extinguish All Hopes is notable, not because it's good, because it's not very good. It's a 6-mana Wrath, but because it's uncommon. Wizards downshifted a Wrath to uncommon specifically for limited in this set, so it's going to be interesting to see what sort of effect that has. Normally Wraths are at rare in limited. I don't think we've ever had a hard Wrath like this at uncommon, so it's going to be very interesting to see what impact that has on the limited format as players try to draft Commander Masters. And finally, we got the basic lands from the set. So much like Dominaria Remastered, the basic lands in this set are all reprints, but they're reprints with the retro border. I actually went back and looked at Dominaria Remastered. The lands from that set, very similar, like iconic basic land art in the retro border. They're worth slightly more than most basic lands. They're not valuable by any means, but a lot of basic lands are like 20 cents, and these were like 35 cents. Some of them were 50 cents. So I actually get a little extra value out of the land swap, potentially, just because players really like some of the art on these lands. Either way, cool to see the retro border. They look super sweet. Anyway, that brings us to the end of our Commander Masters tier list for today. So let me know what you think. What are you hyped for? What do you think of the first day of spoilers? Are you more or less likely to buy an expensive box or an expensive pack? Are you picking up singles? What are you hoping to see for the rest of spoiler season? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll be back tomorrow with some more Commander Masters tier listing. Until then, have an amazing day, and I will talk to you soon. Looking for even more magic? Well, check out the video where we break down the most hated card from every single year of the game, or maybe last week's Against the Odds where we taught some arena zoomers about Turbo Fog.